An extremely
we
strong
literally
weather
laid on our
system.
stomachs and held on to a metal gate. And before long, the building was completely gone that was over the top of us.
An extremely strong weather system marches across the U.S., leaving tornado damage and travel delays in its wake. An old man winter showing no signs of letting up. The same storm system that brought those tornadoes piled more snow on states like Iowa and Minnesota. Amid housing starts in the U.S. slumped in January due largely to the extreme weather storms and bad weather we've seen. A slow start comes at the coolest recorded January for 2 decades. Figures are at a three-year low for new housing production and aren't showing any signs of improving. Builders began work on 850,000 homes at an annualized rate last month, down 16% from December. That figure matches the lowest projection in a Bloomberg survey of economists. Moving on, also talking about the Son of God movie. It's born again. Producers are bringing the epic production to the big screen, but without one major character. And some audience believed he would bear a striking resemblance to the free world's most powerful man. This is not deterring moviegoers, though, as churches and religious groups snap up almost 500,000 tickets weeks before the film makes its debut. We're joined by founder and publisher of Movie Guide, Dr. Ted Baer, to discuss Hollywood's reaction to the success of Christian and family movies. Hello and welcome to America's Forum here on Newsmax TV. I'm John Bachman. The extreme weather sees no signs of relenting, and housing development is bearing the brunt. Economists' predictions are negative, and so far the figures are matching their worst expectations. Joining me now via Skype is the CEO of Home Union, Don Ganguly. Don, it's great to have you with us.
Great to be here.
All right, so we're taking a look at this in the weather and the way it's affecting the housing industry. Should we be worried about a bleak start in the housing sector this year?
Yeah, I think you've got the weather as definitely a factor that's slowing down, housing closings. You also have, high flood insurance rates in a number of places that are also confusing borrowers, and that's slowing things down. But, you've got, lower inventory and higher prices, so affordability is down, mortgage rates are up a little bit. But I think there are some fundamental headwinds if you look at the trends. The number in December was about 4.87 million, I believe, which was actually lower than December 2012, so it's already been trending down. If you look at the number of first-time buyers, it's now dipped to about 26%. It was 27% in December, was 30% last January, and it's traditionally 40%. So, that's a big engine of what drives existing home sales, and you can see that demographic of younger people, first-time buyers, are the ones that are getting, quite hammered with this, with the job growth. So, and the wages in that segment, if you peel the onion, you'll see that, they're mainly lower wage type of opportunities that are coming up. So that's not a, great prognosis. On the flip side, if you look at investors are about 20% of the market, 33% are cash buyers. So that's a segment that's sort of been bailing out this whole existing home sales for a bit. And I think you just mentioned earlier, the other markers are, new home starts and construction, both of which are falling. So I think there are some headwinds.
Yeah, so we've seen a kind of a spike in home prices last year, maybe even into this year a little bit, maybe the largest increase per year, according to some statistics dating all the way back to March of 2006. Do you think folks who had their homes on the market and raised those prices, or other folks who put their homes on the market thinking that we were out of the woods, were those moves maybe made too premature?
Yeah, that could be. You also, when you look at the average price, you realize that there are less and less, foreclosure type homes that are coming on the market. If you look at that stat of foreclosures and short sales, people chasing deals there, that's coming down. So you're coming to more of a normal price. Some of the folks that are, not just now getting from underwater on their mortgage 5 months, which is fairly tight. So.
Yeah, so it looks like, of course, the real estate market is very dependent on where you live in this country. But if you're looking at it maybe as an investor or looking at it in a broad stroke with a brush here, it seems like there are conflicting signs on where the industry's going.
You're right. I mean, let's not forget the investor part of it. You've got large funds that have been buying out big chunks of real estate for investment purposes. People like Blackstone and others, and there's a pretty strong, individual investor movement as well. Because if you look at parts of the country, especially in the Midwest and the South, where price-to-rent ratios are really great. And a lot of people that, have what I call post-mortgage trauma or can't qualify for a loan or have lived in a house, want to live in a house. So you've got a pretty strong rental community. So some of those areas have seen some uplift because of investor activity. If you look at places like Phoenix and other places that have become really hot because a lot of people went and bought out there thinking it was at their lows. California has been, quite hot in a lot of areas, climbing back from real lows. But, several other markets that didn't go down that much are not going up as much.
Yeah, we were just showing everyone video of this house in Palo Alto, California, one of the more expensive places in the country to live. A little home there, about less than 1,000 square feet, on the market for over $1 million. Showing, some of the issues with the housing market right now. I also want to ask you, while we have you here, sir, is in January we saw the Dodd-Frank bill come into effect, become law, in an effort to regulate the lending industry and protect consumers and taxpayers. There's a portion of this. Talk about these qualified mortgages and what you think, or what kind of impact you think they'll have on the business.
It's going to have an impact. There are two things going on there. I mean, one is the FHA and the regular government-backed mortgages are reducing their minimum loan amounts. So conforming loans, if they get reduced, it actually kicks you out of a lot of properties what the minimum values are. So that's one thing that's working against, just the overall home purchase piece. The second thing is the qualified mortgages. The debt ratios have gone down now. So the amount of debt that you can have now is less than what was allowed before. And the whole qualified mortgage, quote unquote, says that you really got to take a look at the borrower and look at the ability to repay.
Yeah, so we're also seeing some short-term pain from this, I guess, because I've talked to mortgage bankers who say, while we know these things are coming into place, we don't know exactly how they're going to shake out once we start doing these applications. Is there just some uncertainty playing the role in maybe the kind of slow start this year we've seen in housing, and that might be worked out once mortgage bankers and buyers start getting used to these changes to the mortgage industry?
Yeah, I think that's accurate, right? Because when you underwrite under these new standards and you send those loans back up to Fannie or Freddie, because there isn't still a secondary market, very small, where you could send these loans. So once they start seeing the acceptance under the qualified mortgages, they'll get a better feel for, whether the loans actually have become more stringent and they're being, kicked back, or whether they're just being tweaked from where they are. So you're right, it's going to reach a steady state. I think they went into effect early January, so we still have a little time to figure out, how those are going to play out.
Yeah, let's talk about affordable housing a little bit, and we discussed this briefly on some of the efforts or some of the steps that are being taken to try to make housing more affordable housing at any size, calling it a willingness to use height and density to the maximum feasible extent. Do you think this will be a solution? Because we know that rents are high, very high in Manhattan in particular, and price a lot of folks out of the market.
At the end of the day, it's there's a fundamental here for people wanting to buy, right? I mean, jobs have become more mobile. So if somebody's got X $1,000 in the bank, unless they can get in with a very low down payment, and they're very, very certain about their jobs and where they're living. In almost a generation now, parents are telling their children, not telling their children that you got to go out and buy a house. Because they could be in LA today, in New York tomorrow, running around in Chicago the day after, chasing the right job. And, having a mortgage and then having to do something with that house when you move is become more of an issue. So there's some, fundamental, what I'd call demographic changes that are, that are actually driving this. So by creating more affordable housing, obviously it's going to help. But the question is, if somebody's got, $20,000 in the bank and, they've got to put a $15,000 down payment into a house.
Yeah, there's no question. The definition of the American dream is certainly changing. Don Ganguly, thanks so much for being with us, and thanks for that insight on the housing industry. Something certainly we need to keep a close eye on. I'm John Bachman. We'll be back here with more on America's Forum right after this. Of course, you can always reach us on social media. If you'd like to say anything about the stories we've been talking about today, you can contact us here at any of these addresses on the screen. We'll be right back right after this.
He promised